Hello, hello. Real quick before we get into the episode, a simple request. If you like this episode, if you like any of the episodes we put out every single week, we would absolutely love it if you would share it with one friend. That's it. Just send them a text, send them an email, mention it next time you see them at the gym. Let them know that they may also like chasing excellence. There's no better way for us to grow our crew here at the show than if folks like you who are already listening share it with somebody who should be here. So if you've got a friend who's not listening, please consider sending them this episode or any of your favorite episodes. We thank you in advance. Okay, let's get into it. Hello and welcome back to the show. Thank you so much for being here. I'm Patrick. I'm Harry Ben. We're very excited about this. We're joined by Daniel Coyle. How are you gentlemen doing?
Great. Thanks for having me. It's good to be here with you.
Yeah, thanks for being here.
Oh, it's awesome to have you here.
Daniel, you are the author of a number of books. The Culture Code, The Talent Code are two books that I think a lot of people will recognize and be aware of. And you are the author of the new book called Flourish, The Art of Building Meaning, Joy, and Fulfillment. And we are excited to talk to you about this book. It is out now, folks. So if you like this conversation, do find this book. We do recommend it. We do love it. So again, Daniel, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me. This is going to be fun.
I want to ask a big kind of question to get into this conversation. And that is, I would love for you to define for us what you mean by flourish, so that as we go through this conversation, we sort of are grounded in what that means, at least what it means to you having written this book. And then maybe a second question on top of that, if it makes sense. I would love to know, after the two books that you've written, both bestsellers, you could have really written anything. I'd love to know why Flourish was the one that got your attention, got your time, and ultimately was the one that you wrote.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, flourishing is the experience of joyful, meaningful growth shared. Joyful, meaningful growth shared. It's not something, it's not what machines can do, right? Machines are great at outputs, great at results, great at measure, great at being predictable. Flourishing has got surprise and growth built into it. It's a word and a definition and a concept that's rooted in biology. And so it is what happens, if I were to sum it up, it's what happens in community. Like, what is this book about? It's about community. It's about the power of community to make us grow. You know, we all walk around thinking we're individuals, sort of perceiving ourselves as individuals, trying to improve as individuals, chasing things as individuals. And it becomes very powerful to sort of rebalance that and say, wait a minute, that's part of the story. There's no question that's true. But the power of connecting with others in deep and meaningful ways and then growing together. And what a good kind of shorthand for it is to look at your own life and say, a little diagnostic here. Like, where do I feel most alive? With whom do I feel most alive, most deeply myself? And the second question is, what am I growing alongside other people? What projects am I working on outside myself with other people? And when you answer those questions and when you reflect on your own experience, that's where you get that sort of experience of, okay, I'm deeply connected. We're moving towards something. It's a little messy and surprising. It's not perfectly neat, but it is the most powerful experience of our lives. What drew me to it, there's this funny little thing that happens when you write books, and it's where each book begins not as a set of answers, but as a mystery, right? And what drew me to talent originally was like, what makes those kids so great at chess and tennis? And why are these little talent hotbeds? What's going on there? Big mystery. Then that leads me from individual talents like, how are the Navy SEALs able to do that? Like, what's going on at Pixar? You know, what are these groups doing? And that quickly leads you, I think, the same journey that you guys have been on, maybe, because you get to the top of the performance mountaintop, right? Where people are, they've organized and engineered their lives to be the very, very, very best. And it turns out that that can be a cold and empty place. There's a lot of sad success stories, you might call them, out there, where it's like, I got everything I wanted. I built a perfect life, and I'm alone, and I have no one to share it with, and I'm lonely, and I'm sad. And that happens. That's just like a normal thing that pops up. And there was some of that kind of happening to me, like as I was moving through my career. And when I was kind of in my mid 50s, both my parents passed away. And like anybody, like you guys have, you bump into these big existential questions like, what's it all about, dude? And it brings you to the ground. And when you get brought to the ground by those questions, as we all do at some point, we all get knocked over by that stuff. And we should get knocked over by that stuff, right? That's how it is. And when you get knocked to the ground, you start getting interested in not the mountaintops, but the valleys, like these rich places where, like, what's going on in that bakery over there where all these people are super lit up all the time and they're creating all these marvelous inventions? And or what's going on with that baseball team where everybody loves being there and nobody ever leaves in the front office and they're achieving way past what you normally would. Places of like this astounding generativity. Like why is that little town in Norwich producing all these Olympians and they all go back there to live afterwards and they're teachers and coaches? Like those places seemed cool and they seemed really amazing to me. And so I just selfishly, wanted to spend time in places like that because it's really fun. And I wanted to kind of learn what was the machinery beneath that magic that I was seeing. And the book is about that machinery.
Yeah, I love that.
And so that you we just mentioned the Norwich. When I read that section of the book, I wanted to somehow stand up on the town square of my town and read this to everyone there. And I did read it to a handful of people close to me because it was such a powerful story about, and maybe I'll just give the quick punchline. Norwich, Vermont, sends an absurd number of people to the Olympics, and not because they have the best training facilities, coaches, or anything else, but because they have this shared sense, this
Mhm.
communal
Mhm.
purpose, this support for each other. I thought it was really awesome. You just kind of said that the first question we should ask ourselves is, where do I feel most alive? And you
Mhm.
write that early on in the book that's a word you kept on coming up and across, was this aliveness. And if I
Mhm.
think of flourishing in one synonym, it would be that, right? It would be a flower that flourishes is one that is really, really alive. I'm just going to take a little, because I think you'd say this really well, and then ask you kind of like to pull apart some of these pieces of this that you have. You said, when I first visited flourishing groups, I noticed that being with them felt different. They possessed a vibrancy, a switched on responsiveness that showed up in their bodies. Their posture in general was relaxed. Their heads were up and their interactions were fluid. Aliveness was the word I kept writing in my notebook. A feeling of being carried along a river of energy that was headed somewhere good. I started to keep a list of the ways that aliveness showed itself. So first off, our audience, that's what we're all striving for, right? To be
Yeah.
a part of, the little tagline that we have is surround yourselves with people that want to see you win. Those that call you out, challenge you, but make you better. No drama, no gossip, no negativity, just good vibes and growth.
Nice.
So this is a book about that, which
Mhm.
is so awesome. And you're right that the things that showed up there, which I found surprising, which is really what I think is cool, were first looseness,
Mhm.
stories,
Mhm.
laughter, and small courtesies.
Mhm.
Those aren't the first things I would have guessed at. Can you talk about how those things showed up and why those things are kind of the cornerstones of this aliveness?
Yeah. Oh, I love that. I love that you picked that out. It's true. And we recognize that. We recognize when you read that, it's like, oh, I've been in places like that. I've been in places that aren't like that. Right.
Mhm.
And we can explain it a bunch of different ways. But for me, the big unlock of this had to do with a couple of things. The first is that these places are really they're radiating groupiness. They're radiating belonging, right? So when you walk into there, you're constantly getting these little signals. They're alert to a new person there, and you're constantly getting these signals that, hey, we're open. We're not just totally focused on this, and we're not status oriented. One of the things that didn't appear in that list would be like expertise, leader, knowledge. It wasn't places where you're getting lectured at or places where you're getting told what to do. It's places
Mm.
where they're that phrase like creating space? Yeah, I've always thought is that is like kind of a groovy phrase that yogis use. We're gonna create space for you now, right now, Ben. But when it's the best way to describe what they're doing.
Mhm.
Really, they're creating space for your body to move. They're creating space for your mind to move. They're creating space for you to connect, and it's a
Mhm.
looseness. And the thing that really unlocked it for me, besides kind of the evolutionary, they're a really belonging centric group, is the idea of how they're using their attention systems. And I use that word systems, it's plural. And I didn't really understand this before I wrote the book. And some of this science is fairly fresh, but we don't have one way of paying attention. We have two. We have task attention, which evolution is built to be super narrow, to grab stuff, to grab food, to control things, to predict what's going to happen, and to see the world like it's just a machine that we can optimize, right? Just absolutely automate. It's for automating things. Task attention. But there's a second form of attention called relational attention. And relational attention is wide and open and warm. And it's what you use when you look at the sky and the stars and you wonder what's going on there. Or when you walk into a new place and you say, oh, do I belong here or not? It's very big. It's not narrow. And it's how we connect. And these places were really good at creating spaces where our relational attention could kind of click on and our task attention could click off. So those signals of warmth and looseness are all absolutely characteristic of relational attention being switched on. We're here to relational attention sees interaction not as an instrument to be controlled, but as worthwhile in itself. There's no utility. You're not trying to get anything done. You're present. And that's the word that I use to describe this quality in the book, presence. And so when you think about what presence is, there's a spaciousness to it. There's an openness to it. And so they're really good at these places. And they have sort of techniques for doing this, which I call awakening cues in the book. But they have ways of doing this to make you sort of stop and think. And I remember I've seen a lot of people who are really really skilled at doing that. And one of the ones that comes to mind for me is this guy named Ari Weinzweig. He's the co-founder of Zingerman's, this giant community of businesses. And they turned down a $50 million offer from Walt Disney to go into the park. And they don't find their meaning to go somewhere else. They're in Ann Arbor. They're rooted there. That's where they have their relationships. So I asked him, though, why'd you turn that down? Most businesses would have accepted that. And Ari gave me a little awakening cue. He points to my wedding ring and he goes, do you take every opportunity that comes along?
I love that.
It was just like a loose, funny moment, right? But it was a little awakening cue to me, like, oh, you're right. It made me, like all these things, it gave me more space. I was seeing it really narrow, like scaling is good. Well, of course you want more money and more revenue. And he had that ability because he was in this kind of, we call it a flourishing mindset, flourishing group. He was sending me an awakening cue, which was, hey, commitment's where the good stuff is, man. Connection's where the good stuff is. And it really had an impact. And so those places are like fire hoses of those kind of moments where over and over again, you get nudged out of your narrow thing, which is like get things done, move from A to B to C to D. And they're constantly saying, hey, dude, look over here. Like, check this out. We're connected. Isn't this cool? Isn't this worthwhile? This is us. And so you're constantly getting this signal that it sort of distills down to like this, like us now. This is us now. And it's this feeling of presence that really becomes kind of pleasurable and addictive because it's worthwhile for its own sake.
I do want to talk to you about awakening cues because I think that's really fascinating. I don't want to go too fast past the attentional systems, though. I always love the chance to talk about attention. I want to just give two little bits from the book and then ask a question on the other side of it. You write this: the type of attention we bring to the world changes the world we find. And then later on in the book, you write, the problem isn't that we've lost the capacity for deep, meaningful connection. It's that we have drifted from the conditions to make it possible. And in that drift, there is room to return. Can you talk to us a little bit about that drift and about how those two different attentional systems can be leveraged to make up for that drift?
Yeah. Now, we've lived through, I mean, the modern world is really, if you look at it in the sweep of evolutionary time, is really deeply strange, right? Most people, 99.9% of our ancestors didn't do any of this stuff. They didn't see the world the way they did. They didn't interact in screens. They didn't interact with words on screens, which is even more, it's kind of bizarre, right? And they didn't have their attention continually focused in this very focused way that leaves us drained and leaves us exhausted and leaves us kind of mentally struggling at times, right? It's not normal to walk around seeing the whole world through this toilet paper tube of control and instrumentalization and to see the whole world as a machine. I mean, when we look at, and one simple way to look at it that I've seen is when they look back in history, how many festival days our ancestors got, like in Middle Ages, how many do you think they got? They got like 150, like, which are basically huge parties where everybody gets to come together. The ancient Egyptians had a ton. My grandparents had much more time spent in like ritual, in community, right? In community rituals than I do. And it makes you rethink what a ritual is. A ritual is a time where you let go of that toilet paper tube attention,
Mhm.
right? It's a time where you give up all cause and effect. And the room to return, I think, is in a couple things. It's in deeply understanding that that's what's happening in our brains. Like already we flip back and forth between these two forms of attention. So understanding it gives us room. But it doesn't take much to kind of flip on that relational attention. If you were to take a second, there's a guy at Harvard Divinity School who has a little ritual that he does. As he brushes his teeth every day, he says to himself, every day contains joy and struggle, and this day is no different.
Love that.
Takes 1 second, but
Yeah.
it doesn't do anything. And that's why it's powerful. It doesn't accomplish anything. It simply is a grounding effect. And what these moments do, and what these awakening cues do, I think, is continually kind of ground us in relationships, which is where the good stuff is. And I think that it's about design. Like it's not so much about willpower, it's about design. It's about saying, you know what? I am going to get up and watch the sunrise once a week. Like I am going to commit. And it's hard to do because you watch the sunrise does not accomplish anything, right? You have to commit. You have to do something that our modern world sees as highly illogical and maybe a little insane. I am going to light a candle before I sit down to write my blog. I'm going to do that. And I'm going to take a second and I'm just going to center myself. I'm going to wake up in the morning and scribble down morning pages that make no sense. I'm just going to scribble what goes into my head. And that ends up being a really powerful regrounding technique. So finding and designing in the book, I try to provide a bunch of examples and ideas in the book, but finding and designing those places where you can rebalance your attentional systems, where you can, and ultimately the goal, if we want to talk about these two systems, when life gets really good, I think it's when the narrow is serving the broad. When you're doing targeted things to deepen relationships, when you're doing targeted things, you're being very intentional and focused with your narrow attention system to create the garden of your life by deepening connection. I saw a good example of that it's an example from a leader. We were interviewing a leader in some consulting I was doing for a job. And we asked the leader, what happens when, it happened to be a Major League Baseball coach, what happens when you are isolated and lonely? It's hard to be manager, right? It's a hard job. What do you do? And he said, I do this like little inside out move where I'm tempted to feel sorry for myself and I'm tempted to kind of get down. But all I do is I start looking around for somebody to help. Like a little thing, I'll just help somebody figure out where their locker is, anything. I'll pick up towels. I do that one time and it just kind of helps me. It's like, oh, that's quite good, right? I mean, in that moment, he's like balancing his attentional systems. He could totally go down the rabbit hole and totally go down his own belly button with how tough things are. And they are tough, no question. But having that moment of like reaching out and creating a little moment of community. And that's what that relational attention system is built to create. Over and over, we see like it feels like community is a long way away, but it's not, right? It just takes a slight change in environment to your community isn't like built so much as it is kind of awakened. Like there's people around you right now, and it doesn't take much. We're like one move away from creating that all the time.
This episode is brought to you by BetterHelp. Sometimes it can feel like everyone else has it together in their love lives, whether they're married, dating, single. The truth is, most of us are still figuring it out and finding our way. Gosh, isn't that true? February, full of flowers, candy, stuffed animals, and of course, lots of talk about relationships and cupids, which rhyme with stupid for a reason. Anyway, no matter where you are, whether you're married or dating or single, we're just focusing on you. You are right on time. And therapy can help you find your way and see more clearly where you want to be. Therapy is an opportunity to identify what's getting in the way of your relationships and help remove any blockers, whether it's for individuals or couples. BetterHelp therapists are fully licensed in the U.S. and work according to a strict code of conduct with over 30,000 therapists. BetterHelp is the world's largest online therapy platform, having served over 6 million people globally. BetterHelp does the initial matching for you so you can focus on your therapy goals and you can switch therapists at any time. You can get 10% off at BetterHelp when you go to betterhelp.com/excellence. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/excellence. Starting something new isn't just hard, it is terrifying. So much work goes into this thing that you're not entirely sure it's going to work out, and it can be hard to take that leap of faith. Trust me, I know. When we started Chasing Excellence, we definitely didn't know what we were doing or what would come of it, but now we know we were onto something and believing in ourselves and launching the show despite all those fears and questions, and it helps to have a partner like Shopify on your side when you do get started. Shopify is the commerce platform behind millions of businesses around the world and 10% of all e-commerce in the United States, from household names like Gymshark and Allbirds to brands just getting started. With hundreds of ready-to-use templates, Shopify helps you build a beautiful online store that matches your brand style. They're packed with helpful AI tools that write product descriptions, page headlines, and even enhance your product photography. It's time to turn those what-ifs into with Shopify today. Sign up for your $1 per month trial at shopify.com/excellence. Go to shopify.com/excellence. That's shopify.com/excellence. We're brought to you by Function Health, a lab testing service helping me track my health over time, not just get a one-time snapshot. I actually just got a reminder from Function a week or so ago telling me that it was time to schedule my follow-up blood draw. Note to self, still have to do that. And honestly, that's what sets Function apart from other lab testing. It's not a one-and-done thing where you get results back and then never look at them again. Function is built for tracking trends over time so you can actually measure and improve your health across months and years. There are over 100 lab tests covering everything from hormones to thyroid to heart health and nutrient levels, and their team of doctors reviews your results with personalized insights. The ability to see how my markers change over time gives me actual data to work with, just blindly hoping I am moving in the right direction. That is the power of Function. You're not just getting tested, you're building a complete picture of your health that gets clearer with every draw. Head to functionhealth.com/excellence to get $300 off your membership. That's functionhealth.com/excellence for $300 off.
That inside out aspect for the baseball coach shared with you is amazing how strikingly similar that is to the suggestion that we give to endurance athletes.
Oh, really?
Which is, I entered the fitness space through doing Ironman triathlons. And anyone that's done one knows how powerful this is. When you get really dark inside, which most people are going to experience, and you feel like the pity party and the critic in the head start to go on repeat to where you can't get out of it, the way you get out of that is by thanking volunteers.
Whoa. Ha! I love knowing that.
Yeah. And once you start thanking volunteers, it gets you out of yourself. And there's a lot that, until you just said that, and then it creates this little moments of connection. And that's really interesting to hear that, because it lit up a second light bulb that I didn't have before.
I love that. Well, there's a thing that Coach Popovich at the San Antonio Spurs used to say all the time, just still does. Get over yourself. And I always thought that was like, let go, get over yourself. But actually, I think it's like, get over yourself. It's actually transcend yourself. Get above it on a different plane so that you can, and the only way to do that, I think, is the fastest way to do that is to reach out. And it resonates so much with, so many spiritual traditions, so many philosophical traditions. It's like, when you read Love Your Neighbor in this light, it's like, oh, that's not just like feel good stuff. That's actually very, very deep when it comes to how we are built and how we're wired for that kind of connection and fellowship, and the goodness it does us to do that.
I love Pop. You had another, I think that he used to talk a lot about, which he would always, he's one of the most winningest coaches in the history of the game. Yet he would end every season saying, "Thank you for allowing me to coach you."
Yeah, isn't that amazing?
And again,
right?
talk about like getting over yourself, right? This isn't about me. This isn't about the coach. This isn't about me even instilling things into you. It was about the player, and it was a lot like allowing that to happen.
I love that. And how long did that take him to do? I mean,
Right.
10 seconds?
Right.
And here we are. I get chills when I think about it. It is so powerful. And I think that what that really shows in all of this is that we kind of got this machine habit model. So we're so entrained on it, right? That we're a machine. We have to optimize, animate, and automate everything in our lives and have these protocols and everything. But in fact, the most important things in our lives are relationships, and relationships aren't machines. Like, they're built in moments, right? And those moments are always the same. Those are moments of surrender. Those are moments where he doesn't have to do that. He doesn't have to say that. They're moments of expression. They're moments of gratitude. They're moments of connection. And so, like, the challenge, I think, for all of us is like, who are we Coach Pop to? Like, who can we thank? And who is out there? Like, you don't have to invent people. You already have those relationships. It's your job to like bring them to life, right? Which it doesn't take much to do, as that story shows.
It certainly is finding these like little sparks create big flames. Does it also it seems like there's this does flourishing require slowing down? It's light a candle,
Yep.
watch the sunrise.
Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely. There's a rhythm to it. And then that's why I give the book sort of two parts. The first part is presence, which is basically, if you had to sum it up, it'd be like, stop doing stuff and start connecting in a deeper way, right? And that's a rhythm that I saw in these places because there would be these moments of real stillness, but then there's these moments of real messy exploration and activity and surprise and action, like agency, right? You kind of have this presence and then you have this agency in motion of exploration where they're not just executing a plan. They're kind of exploring a space together and creating new stuff. They kind of operate like rivers or like, well, it's actually the best model for it in my mind is like a flock of birds moving through the forest at speed, like moving around obstacles together, staying connected, moving toward a horizon. That's what it looks like. And then they rest, right? They don't just keep flying forever. Then they rest and connect and have some presence. And then something else comes and they go fly. And that's what all those places feel like. There's that spacious inhale of a pause where you're really building a deep connection. And then you're growing, you're exploring, you're getting messy, you're trying stuff. There's a lot of agency and movement. And it's just very natural. I think that's why these places feel natural. They don't feel like machines. They feel like they're like an ecosystem feels.
Why is growing? Why is that important? Why is growing? I kind of struggled with this in a conversation I was having recently where
Mhm,
I was, kind of taking Stephen Covey's 4 things like live, love, lead, learn.
mhm.
Why is it important that we grow, that we evolve, that we learn? Why does meaningful joy, why is a meaningful life, why is growth so integral into that?
Just to be kind of structural about it, because the world's going to change, right? Time rolls on, your world change, your body will change, your environment will change, the world keeps spinning. And so to get locked in to a point, and the landscapes in which we work, live, raise families are constantly shifting. And so if we're not adaptive and resilient and able to grow, even if that growth is deeply internal, maybe that growth is like accepting some suffering or something
Right.
like that. Maybe that growth is deepening a relationship. So growth isn't just I'm more skilled at X, Y, or Z. It's holistic growth. And it would be great if we could sort of say, nope, I'm going to get to that spot and I'm good. Like I'm done. Like I'm not going to try anymore. But I would say history shows that that's not a super powerfully effective strategy.
It's like Seinfeld says like he sees like really fit people in the gym and he's like, "What are you doing here? You're done."
Oh, that's great.
Daniel, already in this conversation and in the book, you have great examples, great stories of leaders who are building flourishing groups. A couple of things about that I'd love to get into with you. And the first is I kept being struck by this realization that nobody who you're talking about set out to build a flourishing group, a quote unquote flourishing
Mhm,
group. All of it seems to have happened. I don't want to say accidentally, because that feels like they just woke up one day and there it was.
mhm.
But it also didn't seem to be, they didn't seem to be built by, I have this plan. And if I execute this plan, I will have a flourishing group. So can you just talk to us a little bit about how we can become leaders in whatever way we can do that, whatever context that we live in? What's that push and pull about moving in the direction of flourishing, but letting it happen to the degree that we have to let it happen?
Yeah, yeah, you're making me think of I think it's in some old Chinese stuff where it's like, with good leaders, people say, "What a great leader that guy is." And with great leaders, people say, "We did it ourselves."
Mm.
Oh, I love that.
Like that's how great leaders operate. So
Wow.
you can't see that fingerprint, right? They really feel that
Mm.
agency. I think the big unlock for me in this is the difference between complexity and complicatedness. Complicated and complex.
Hmm.
We use those words kind of interchangeably, but complicated things are different than complex things. And great leaders of flourishing groups are really good at complexity. They're complexity athletes, I would say. Complicated things are machines. They get put together. You put them together the same way every time. They deliver the same result, right? If I gave you the instructions to build a Ford Mustang and you had all the materials and you followed the instructions, you'd get a Ford Mustang. Complex things are alive. Complex things change when you interact with them. Complex things are like not building a Ford Mustang. They're raising a teenager. Like that's complex. There's no set of instructions, right? And with complexity, the smart thing to do with complexity, because it's alive, right? It's like a river or a flock of birds, right? Picture a flock of birds. I have a flock of birds. What am I going to do with them? Well, you got to do three things. Complexity works. You got to have a horizon they're going toward. You got to have some direction. They call it gradient in the math. You need a gradient toward that, right? Something is tipping you toward that. Second thing you need are guardrails. Like you don't want them to just go anywhere, right? Rivers only flow. Rivers without riverbanks are puddles. So you need a gradient and you need guardrails. And then the third thing you need is agency. You need to energize those birds, that river, to move in that direction, in that channel. And so what I see with great leaders in this space is that they are obsessed with defining a shared and clear horizon that we are flowing toward. They are obsessed with like really clear guardrails. So we are not that. We don't do that kind of stuff. We do this kind of stuff in this channel. And they are obsessed with creating conditions where people have agency, where they feel like they own what they're doing and they have the freedom to move left, right, within that space. And so they're more like greenhouse builders, or they're more like landscape architects or something, because they're creating these conditions and they're not necessarily, and what they're not doing is setting up a machine-like structure where we're going to do these three steps. And right now everybody feels kind of coerced and they feel the agency going down. We're going to do it exactly this way. And we're going to get exactly this result. And then you can see expectations being created if you don't get exactly this result. So they're really, really skilled at those three things. And one of the common things they do, I discovered in the research, I kept meeting people at these groups where they would be like, they'd all say the same thing to me. They'd be like, that leader guy, whether it's a baseball coach or head of this bakery or whatever, they'd say, he's never told me to do anything. Like I've been here for 25 years and he's never told me ever. Like Terry Francona was coach at the Cleveland Guardians. And people would say that, like, he's never told anyone. It's kind of funny. He's a Hall of Fame coach. And people in the front office kind of laugh. They're like, he's never told anyone how to hit or field or pitch. Like he never says anything, but he coaches the whole person and he sets conditions. This is who we are. This is where we're going. I'm going to give you guys agency. And that's really what ends up being really, really powerful. So thinking like a designer. And there's certain phrases that recur in these spaces too. Another phrase that I heard a lot of was, now it's up to you. One of the best creators of it, I think I wrote about it in the Culture Code, was Ed Catmull at Pixar. He brings all the new hires into the building. They're all in an auditorium. And he gives a very short speech. The speech is, whatever you did before, you're a movie maker now. We need you to make our films better. Goodbye. Right? Really small signal. It's not sure ain't a plan, right? But when it comes to, there's a horizon, there's agency, there's a channel, and it works. Like I met a guy who was like a software engineer. He didn't have anything to do with the movie making at Pixar. And he made a really powerful suggestion that got into that movie. And like it's incredible when that happens. So that's what happens in rivers. That's what happens. You get these surprises that bubble up. And that ends up being a real tell of flourishing. That, when you talked about that flower sort of blooming, like that's what flourishing is. It's got this sense of surprise, this sense of where did that come from? That's really cool. That's the kind of stuff you hear in these places.
You keep mentioning the river. Can you just talk about what tilting the river means? Because that stuck out at me when I read it.
Yeah, tilting the river. Like you've got people are these agents. You sort of picture these molecules of your organization moving around. And good leaders are able to provide a new gradient to say, oh, we're not about this, we're going here. and to give people space and agency and encouragement to explore in that direction. And when you do that, new patterns pop up. And the best example of tilting the river that I was sort of around happened to be with the Cleveland Guardians baseball team. For years, they were oriented around their idea, their horizon, their gradient, if you will, was how do we identify the best players? Like, we want to use Moneyball, we want to use algorithms, we want to identify the best players. Let's find them. That was everything in their organization was built around that question. All the scouts, how can we do that? All the player development, how can we do that? And they quickly realized in around 2013, all that technology evens out. Everybody's got the same algorithms. We need to flip our organizational question, our horizon. And they built the entire player development system around the question, how can we help this player improve? Like, whoever they are. So everything gets flipped and moved in that direction. And they didn't have answers. But in all of these flourishing groups, and I think the same would be true in our life, like, answers end conversations and questions ignite them. And so these places and these leaders are really, I think, skilled at doing what we all should be better at, which is like shying away from the answers a little bit and not worrying about the answers. And now we live in a world where answers are as cheap as tap water and you can always get an answer. It's not hard. But one thing that some of this new technology isn't as good at is like identifying a really, really great question. Like, what do we want to do? Where are we going to be in 10 years? What exactly paint a picture for me, what a great Tuesday looks like in the year 2036 for you. Like, that's a really interesting question. And I'd like to dig into that. And there's no answer, but the exploration tilts our river and generates agency. It generates newness. It generates new patterns that we can then explore. So that's what flourishing feels like. It feels like people continually asking mysterious, great questions.
We have all been there. Winter rolls around. You start digging through your closet for warmer clothes, and nothing feels quite right anymore. Those beat up pants from college, probably time to retire them. And yes, I'm talking to myself. It's time to upgrade all of us to Rag & Bone's Infuse Denim. We used to have to choose between jeans that looked great and jeans that actually lasted. But with Rag & Bone, we finally get both. Jeans built to move with you, holding their shape and developing character over time, much like yourself. With multiple fits from slim and straight to relax or athletic, there's a style for every occasion. Each pair goes through an 8-step over-dye process, giving rich, layered tones and deep dimensional shades that look polished yet effortless. This is Rag & Bone at their best. 2 decades of denim experience packed into a pair of jeans you'll reach for every single day. And that's exactly what I do. They're true investment pieces that only get better with wear. It is time to upgrade your denim with Rag & Bone. For a limited time, you, my friends, can get 20% off your entire order with code excellence at rag-bone.com. That's 20% off at rag-bone.com with the code excellence. We are brought to you by Gusto. Gusto is an online payroll and benefits software company built for small businesses. It's an all-in-one, remote-friendly, incredibly easy to use, so you can pay, hire, onboard, and support your team from anywhere. When I'm not behind the microphone, I work at my local CrossFit affiliate, and I can tell you firsthand the admin, the paperwork, the overhead of actually running a gym is one of the biggest things that stands in the way of gym owners doing what they opened the gym to do. They didn't open a gym to calculate payroll taxes or manage HR paperwork. I promise you, they opened it to coach people, build relationships, help people get healthier. But all that admin work still has to get done, and it can eat up hours every single week. Gusto can help. Unlimited payroll runs for one monthly price, no hidden fees, no surprises. You can get direct access to certified HR experts to help support you through any tough HR situation. Gusto is trusted by over 400,000 small businesses, and it buys operators back the time to do the really valuable work that only they can do. You can try Gusto today at gusto.com/excellence and get 3 months free when you run your first payroll. That's 3 months of free payroll at gusto.com/excellence. Every group has someone who insists on doing things the hard way. That friend still paying for a subscription they forgot they had. The one refusing to update their phone because it still works. I'm not that person. Well, not really, except when it comes to overpaying for wireless service. But right now, I'm in the middle of switching carriers, and let me tell you, it's intentionally a pain. The big 3 carriers make it difficult on purpose to keep you locked in, but I'm making the switch to Mint Mobile. I think you should too. Stop paying way too much for wireless. Mint exists purely to fix that. Same coverage, same speed, just without the inflated price tag. For a limited time, get 50% off 3, 6, or 12-month plans of unlimited premium wireless. Bring your own phone and number and start saving immediately. Switch now at mintmobile.com/excellence. And for a limited time, get unlimited premium wireless for just $15 a month. That's mintmobile.com/excellence. Upfront payment of $45 for 3 months, $90 for 6 months, or $180 for 12-month plan required. $15 a month equivalent. Taxes and fees extra. Initial plan term only. Over 50 gigabytes may slow when network is busy. Capable device required. Availability, speed, and coverage varies. Additional terms apply. See mintmobile.com.
I want to thank you for that part of the book. The questions is Patrick and I, it's kind of ironic that we both have a platform where we speak a lot, yet we're both extremely introverted.
Mm-hmm.
After reading that, I was in a social group and I had that's the question literally was that stuck to me and I underlined it. I was like, this has a lot of power behind it. I got in that situation. I asked a group of people, what does a perfect day look like to you? And how that moment created enough space for people to get away from the small talk and into something so much more deep and meaningful. I get it's like there's this fine line between dictator and designer, right? I mean, it's not a fine line. It's a big gap. And that was just like a really cool space to be able to play the designer of that very small group. And you have a list of great questions. And one of the, we have this framework, which we talk about in terms of how to chase excellence. And chase excellence essentially comes down to, are you living a fulfilled life, flourishing life? And it requires you to have the freedom to pursue certain things. That freedom first comes from health and connection, and thus the 5 factors of how are you training, eating, sleeping, thinking, and connecting.
Mm-hmm.
When we go into the thinking category, we define that from one of our friends as the story we tell ourselves. That's basically what people get caught up in, this idea of mindset. What is it? It's a really, I think, clean, neat, tidy way to just say what we mean by mindset. You have this phenomenal quote in here from, his name's something Block, but
Peter Block.
And Peter Block. I'm just going to read this because it's where we get to the designer aspect. And it's, everyone walks around with a story in their head to justify themselves. And those stories are basically fictions. The real question is the story in your head useful? A lot of people get stuck in a story that's not useful. Stories of isolation and complaints. But if they experience another way of being together with other people, I think that's the key point there, it can change that story. And to do that, you have to put people in provocative moments and let them learn from their own experience. You're not a dictator, you're a designer. That coupled with this idea of this metaphor of the river is beautiful. It's so great because we've used other ones in terms of like you're a car driving on a highway and you have headlights and you have guardrails and don't smash in. But even that is like the road is laid. The river is, without the guardrails, is a puddle. It's like you're just it's a really eloquent analogy. It's really powerful. I'm wondering, because this is the way we think about things here, if flourishing, and I'm just going to ask it. If flourishing were like physical fitness, right?
Yeah.
It was something that what would training for it look like?
Love that question.
Whoa. Oh, that's deep. That's good. Well, to scroll back for a second, way to highlight Peter Block. I mean, he's one of my, I think that is just, you highlighted what I think is one of the just absolute core. What a brilliant way to think about that. And this idea that experience is the ultimate teacher here. It's not something you can persuade someone into doing. And we're all pre-wired to do it. If we experience it, all of a sudden we can shift that story. So that is really beautiful. What does it look like to train that? I think it looks like, because you're basically training a couple of things. And if you're trying to train your attentional system, and it takes some reps to do that, right? It is uncomfortable to do some of this stuff because it feels unproductive. It feels, I've got it. There's a concept in the book called yellow doors where it's like saying yes to stuff that seems like you probably shouldn't say yes to, or saying yes to kind of little opportunities that appear here and there, the coffee with the acquaintance, the coworker you didn't really like at first. And you have to push through to get that stuff. It is uncomfortable. And to me, that almost has this resonance with muscular training. Like if community fitness, if flourishing is about, am I flourishing? I am deeply connected with a group of people and we're doing projects together. That's what it comes down to, right? I have these cool work projects going on, cool family projects, cool neighborhood projects. I'm seen and known and deeply connected in all those communities. So that means the metaphor is not, I need to like strengthen a muscle. A lot of training metaphors are machine based. This is more organic. Like it's more like a garden. So if I'm going to do that, if I'm going to train to do that, I got to become a good gardener. I've got to like get in the habit of watering those relationships regularly or they will wither, right?
What is watering those relationships? When you say watering those relationships, what do you
Like reaching out, like there's a good, I would call it friction boosting in some ways.
Mm,
Like if we're right now, everything's incentivized thanks to our tech overlords for like everything being frictionless, right? I can swipe and I'm
right.
done.
Yeah, yeah.
And yet communities are built on moments of unexpected friction. And the guy who captured this the best was the writer Kurt Vonnegut. He used to walk to his downtown in the town where he lived in Indiana, and he'd buy a single envelope and then he'd walk back home. And he'd do it the next day and he'd buy a single envelope and he'd walk back home. And finally, the clerk is like, Mr. Vonnegut, I have a box of 50 envelopes here. Like, you are welcome to purchase it. And he goes, I would never do that because on my walk here, I get to pat the dogs, I make funny faces at the babies, and I give a thumbs up to the fire engine as it goes by. Like it's he I'm
So good.
intentionally choosing this
So good.
pathway
Right.
because it nurtures my sense of this connection to this place and its people. And I think that takes in this world in which we live, where we've kind of glorified habits and automation to the point where it's sucked a lot of life out of us to say, I'm not going to just try to like, I'm going to friction boost. I'm going to
Mm.
intentionally go out and have these kinds of interactions. And the other thing that I think would be useful if we're taking the athletic metaphor or that if you're going to be a good athlete gardener, if we'll call it that.
That's a new thing for us now, Patrick.
Athlete gardener. I love it.
TM.
Like accepting and developing a tolerance for annoyance.
Mm.
Communities are annoying.
Mm.
Communities are inherently annoying because they're freaking complex and you're going to annoy people and they're going to annoy you and it's not going to be perfect and it's not going to be smooth because it's a community. And communities are also transcendent, right? It's not, you cannot have it both ways. So accepting annoyance as the price of a worthy thing. Annoyance is the price of community is a pretty good mantra. Because I think we're trained and coached and sold this idea that annoyance is some kind of a deal breaker. And annoyance is absolutely intolerable. When really it's just like normal. It's normal to be annoyed. And I'm sure we're all annoying to other people too at times. And that's just part of being a human being in a community. So this tolerance for it. And the other, I guess there's a couple other themes that would emerge for me too. It's like, I think it would be little is big, like these little gestures, like we've seen with pop, like that moment of saying, thanks for allowing me to coach you. It takes 5 seconds and it has a huge impact. Little expressions of meaning and mattering in a relationship are big. And I guess the other thing I would throw in if we're building this athlete is the theme that being stupid is smart. Like doing stupid stuff together that doesn't have a point. Like, I guess the thing that captures this for me is like, how great are music festivals? Like, they're great. It's really fun to go to them. It's also annoying. It's also stupid. Like, it's really dumb to travel to go camp in a place for several days where you could probably hear the music anyway. It's right there. You don't need to go. But doing these big, pointless things, this
Mm.
art, you could call it the art of hanging out, just doing stupid stuff with other people that is not utilitarian, that does not achieve a goal, that does not give you some productive outcome, ends up being just a real great way to deepen relationships. That would be the training regimen. So this sounds kind of like a unique regimen we're building here, Ben.
Could you, we talked about, or you mentioned awakening cues earlier. This actually feels like a good time to bring that idea back. Can you define that for us? Like, what do you mean by awakening cues?
Yeah.
where do they fit into the mix here with the attentional systems and the pursuit of flourishing? And maybe does it fit into this idea of being the athlete gardener?
Yeah, I like that. Yeah, they're designing moments that knock you out of narrow attention and that create moments of responsive stillness. They're moments of responsive stillness where you're connecting to something that's not you. You're not focused on your own thing and the next thing you're gonna get done, the next thing you're done, next thing you get done. You're kind of knocked a little bit back on your heels. And it can be as simple as watching the sunrise. It can be, like we described, lighting a candle. It can be some type of reading you do every day. It can be some kind of free writing that you do every day. They're behaviors. They're behaviors that shift your attention from narrow to broad and shift your attention from controlling to connecting. And if there's a word to describe what they do, they open
Mm,
your attention. You go from being to being receptive, receptive. And they're always built around questions too. I mean, you see this in good leaders do. They don't come in with the answer. They come in asking the question that puts everybody, kind of opens everybody up. And I would call that an awakening cue too. So they're completely normal. They're around us all the time. And if we're kind of intentional about them,
mm,
we can kind of reap the benefit of them and reap. It's almost a health metaphor where I think we've grown up with, if you want to eat better, you should understand proteins, carbohydrates, and fats. If you want to have attentional health, you should understand you have these two forms of attention and they operate very differently. And if you go too unbalanced, it's very unhealthy.
you have some more examples of what awakening cues could look like? Because I feel like when you describe them, I think, oh, I've had that before, but it was almost always, not always, it was often accidental, right? I happened to be up and the sun was coming up and I had that moment, right? Or my kid does something and it causes me to slow down. And I have a cousin she's an installation artist. And I thought of her as
What is an installation artist?
installation art. So she is paid to go into hotels, homes, businesses, and put art up, her own art up. So she creates it, she designs it, and then she puts it up in the places that want her to. But one of the things she's always talking about is noticing light, literally sitting and watching the light go across the wall, or how the light reflects off of a piece of art, or whatever it might be. And as soon as I read An Awakening Cue, I thought of her and I thought of that idea of noticing light. And again, back to kind of my question, which is like, I feel like I've had moments of that, but they're almost always accidental. How do we start to make those more intentional? I love the idea of, lighting a candle or getting up once a week to see the sunrise. But have you yourself have any other awakening cues that maybe can start to spark ideas for us? Like, oh, I can do that. Like, I'm going to do that. That's
I
going to
like
be what
that.
I do on
Yeah.
Tuesday.
Yeah. And the word for what you're going for is ritual. I mean, that's how human beings have typically, tribally, evolutionarily activated that attention is we've had a ritual together. And if you look, there's never been a human group without a ritual. That's one of
Mm,
the sort of fascinating things. There's
mm.
anthropologists that challenge if anyone finds a human group without a ritual, they'll give you $100. And nobody's ever cashed in. Everybody has them because they switch us out of this and they connect us, right? So I would say ritual is the broad way to think about it. If there's a ritual, to build ritual into your life. And one of the things that I've found sort of useful after writing this book is doing something. I sort of think of it as like the daily rando, reaching out to somebody in my phone that I haven't talked to in a long time and just calling them up or sending them a text if that's more appropriate. Like the other day, I called my friend Kyle, and he and I used to play football together on Wesleyan Drive in Anchorage, Alaska in 1975. And we
Mm.
just had this really, I hadn't talked to him in 10 years, and just had this,
Wow.
it was just like the highlight of my week. And I think he enjoyed it too. And it was just a daily rando reach out. It was really, really fun. I guess, and we talked about yellow doors a little bit. That's another one that
Yeah, can you talk about that a little bit more? Because I think that that's really interesting.
yeah, that's another one that's really been powerful that has changed my life is like to realize that we normally go through life in this narrow mode looking for green doors and red doors, which is signals go here, this looks good, promising, put energy and attention here. Red door is don't go here, this doesn't look good. And that life deepens, warms, broadens when you start kind of attuning to the idea that there's a lot of yellow doors too. Like
Mm.
these doors, these opportunities that are maybe out of the corner of your eye. Maybe you're not so inclined at first, like they don't look super promising, They require a little energy to open and go through. It is that invite from the neighbor who seemed like a weirdo and now wants to go for a walk, and it's like, "Oh, okay, I don't know, I think I'm busy," or is that a yellow door? In my life, I got one from a friend who had gotten divorced, and he was saying, "I wanna get some guys together to go indoor climbing," and to me, that was like obvious red door, hate heights. Indoor climbing is silly. Like, it's your little shoes and the little harness, and it just always struck me as being just
I did
little
it once. The shoes, I
shoes.
couldn't get past the shoes.
It's the shoes, right? Like, who would do
These
that? It just
ridiculous
seems silly.
shoes.
No shade on Alex Honnold, but it's like, it's a weird pursuit. So I was like a red door, but then I knew about that. I'd recently found out about this concept, and so I yellow doored it, and 5 years later, 4 years later, it's like, these are some of my best friends in the world. We go skiing. We just came back from a ski trip to Colorado. Our families hang out. It's totally enriched my life because I wasn't thinking narrowly. And because that, if you make a habit or a ritual of saying, I'm going to say yes to a yellow door a day or a yellow door a week, and it can be tiny stuff that, as you say, little sparks, big flames.
Yeah, the idea of the narrow versus zooming out. You have this really great example of Ari, the restaurateur that owns multiple businesses. He's kind of explaining how we can tell when things are going well.
Mm,
And I'm just going to read it. I ask him how he can tell when things are going well, and he says, it's an energy, a vibration. It's how people are paying attention. It's the volume of the music, the salt levels in the bread,
Hmm.
the way the whole experience tells a story that people can sense to be a part of. Have you ever seen 7 Days Out? It's a Netflix.
mm,
It's really cool. Anyways, they do like these. It's a documentary that they track the week leading up to a big event. So
mm.
on a space shuttle launch,
Oh, wow.
biggest dog show, but the best one is about the reopening of 11 Madison Park.
Oh,
Will
man.
Guidara, who's written Unreasonable Hospitality, purchased it from Shake Shack guy. I'm blanking his
Danny
name.
Meyer. Yeah.
Danny Meyer, thank you. And they turn it into the best restaurant in the world. And they get awarded best restaurant in the world. And the night that they win that award, they tear the place apart and start all over from scratch. So it is the 7 days leading up to their opening day. In the documentary, they ask him this exact question, and his answer is almost word for word the same response. He says, it's an energy, it's a vibe,
Mm.
it's the music. You can just feel it, you can sense it. And he says, and I just step back into a corner, close my eyes, and allow myself to take it all in. And what's really neat about that is not only the almost verbatim responses to those two things by two incredible world-class performers, which, by the way, is another side tangent, is this isn't a matter of stepping back just to step back. This is actually a step back, zooming out so you can create something that is otherworldly, the best in class. This is not
Mm.
the antithesis of chasing excellence. This is a meaningful part of it. But what I want to get to is you ask him after he says all those things, the vibration, the music, the salts, the conversations. Your question to him is like, kind of like, all right, get it. What's most important?
Mhm.
As any good journalist would ask. And that's what I would ask too, right? As a person that runs multiple businesses, this is what we're taught as entrepreneurs. It's all about prioritizing. It's about
Mhm.
when, right? What's important now?
Mhm.
This is the biggest thing that we can do to move ourselves forward. So your question is, what's most important? Which of those things you mentioned matters the most? And his answer is, the most important thing is to stop looking for the most important thing. Like the opposite of Stephen, the main thing is to keep the main thing the main thing. This is just like, to me, was like a put the book down moment. Like it's like the poker table got flipped over and I'm not allowed to play cards anymore for a little while because this is, at one hand, I totally get it. I run a pretty thriving gym business, and
Mhm.
this is how I do it. I go into a lot of times I did this morning. Literally this morning, I went into the hallway where no one can see me and I just listened to it. And I
Mm.
just wanted to listen to what was happening, not even see it, like other senses. So I get it there, but at the same time, when I go and direct the business, I'm playing more of a dictator. I'm like, here's the priorities, here's the objectives, here's the key results, here's the strategy and the tactics of which we're going to execute this. How should we be approaching those dichotomy?
Yeah, it is a dichotomy. Right.
Yeah, right.
It's super interesting. I love that. And that's the moment. That's what that moment felt like for me too, Ben. It was like, this is the moment where the machine world hits the ecosystem, right?
We want the machine to work.
Want the machine. Well, what a machine. He's like, it's not a machine, dude. But there are a lot of little machines within that I think the ideal is to have the machines serve the ecosystem, not the other way around. So, sort of similar to how we want our narrow attention to serve the broad attention, I think we want to be very systematic. And they are. The bread, that salt level in the bread doesn't get there by accident, right? They need to, a million little things have to come together in a very organized way. And you need people take ownership over those systems, but never forgetting that this is happening within relationship and always grounding yourself in that relationship. One way they do that at Zingerman's is they have all these like recipes, they call them, and they're training devices, but they're different. In most places, the training on service would be kind of all around, here are the 10 steps to great service. Do these 10 things. And they'd be very informative and they would give you those 10 steps. Here are the 3 steps to Zingerman's good service. Step 1, find out what they want. Step 2, get it. Step 3, over deliver. So, but then there's all kinds of conversation and ownership around that. What they're doing is they're creating kind of a guiding framework for attention and for connection to happen, not to just simply treat the person as a machine whose job is to get this measurable result, but saying, hey, and that means accepting and even celebrating imperfection. Like imperfection is not a bad thing. It actually is a sign that people are doing it. And it creates, it's kind of like friction boosting. Like it kind of sucks, but it actually also kind of connects in a way. So if somebody maybe doesn't do a great job in service, there's going to be a conversation about it, right? And in that conversation, hopefully it'll happen in a humane, connective way. And you'll end up kind of getting over each other, getting over it and deepening the relationship and improving the service. So I think making systems the servant of the relationship is like the key. And a lot of times in our kind of machine thinking that we're all entrained on, we do the other.
Yeah, we think that the sum of the parts will equal at least the whole, if not greater than. And that's sort of is not, that's the thesis is that is not the case. If you work on all of these individual parts, they will not create the whole.
Yeah.
And the idea is to focus on the whole and then make sure that the pieces along the way support the whole.
Yes.
Yeah.
Daniel, this has been great. The book is called Flourish, The Art of Building Meaning, Joy, and Fulfillment. Thank you for your time. Thank you for the book. Best of luck to you as it gets out into the world.
Thanks for having me. This was a total blast. You guys have created a great community, so it's inspiring to see you in action. So thank you.
Thank you.
I appreciate that, Daniel. It's awesome, man.
Thank you so very much for tuning into the show this week. 2 quick things before you go. First, if you want even more from this episode, go check out the full 5-3-1 breakdown. We give you the 5 big ideas from the episode, 3 reflection questions to help you process it all, and 1 key takeaway that you can put into action right now. The link is in the show notes. The second thing, while you're there, check out the Chase Club. It's our premium membership where we include bonus content, ad-free episodes, and a brand new Chase Tracker app. Check it all out at chasingexcellence.email.
I earned my degree online at Arizona State University. I chose to get my degree at ASU because I knew that I'd get a quality education, they were recognized for excellence, and that I would be prepared for the workforce upon graduating. To be associated with ASU, both as a student and alum, it makes me extremely proud, and having experienced the program, I know now that I'm set up for success. Learn more at asuonline.asu.edu.